So welcome to the Special Olympics Maryland Unified Champion Schools Back to School webinar. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Now, before we get started, just a few group norms that I'd like to reiterate for the evening. All participants will remain on mute throughout the session, and if you have any questions or comments, please utilize the chat box feature. We'll be monitoring the chat through this webinar, and we'll make sure that we address any lingering questions at the end of the presentation. As an important note, this session is being recorded, and that recording will be distributed to all registered participants along with a copy of all of these slides. So keep an eye out for that and all of our other follow-up materials that we'll be sending out after this presentation is over. So we'll briefly touch on the slides here in this webinar session, and then we'll send out follow-up materials that will elaborate much more and that you can view at your own leisure. So that's good. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome you all again, and we will begin tonight with a welcome from Jim Schmutz, our president and CEO here at Special Olympics Maryland. So Jim, I would just like to extend a welcome to you and thank you very much for being here. And I will be turning the microphone over to you now.
Thanks, Veronica. I appreciate it. I know we've got a lot to cover tonight, so I'll be brief. I just really want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us this evening. Obviously, we're in unprecedented times, and just really want to reinforce our commitment to being a good partner with everybody who has joined us and all the schools with whom we work across the state. It's an exceptional opportunity for us to be in partnership with you in creating the next unified generation. You are contributing to creating a world where opportunity is not limited by disability, and the interactive, inclusive experiences that you provide both on the field and off the field are really changing the world. So on behalf of all our athletes across the state and their families, I just want to thank you for everything that you do every day to make the world a better place. So thanks very much. I look forward to the evening's presentation.
Thank you, Jim, for that welcome message. So I'd like to take the next moment to just run through some team introductions so you know who we have on the line tonight and what ways that they serve the mission of Unified Champion Schools. So the voice behind the screen currently is myself, Veronica Smaldone. I am an AmeriCorps member serving this year with Unified Champion Schools in Western Maryland. Also joining us tonight, we have Jeff Abel, who heads the team for local program development. Emma Bush, who is also an AmeriCorps member. She's serving Unified Champion Schools on the Eastern Shore. We've got Frank Farrell, our VP of Development. Mackenzie Irvin, who works with our youngest athletes. Betsy Juron, who is working hard on our law enforcement torch run, which is virtual this year. We're also joined by Melissa Kelly, the Senior Director of the Unified Champion Schools program here in Maryland. We will hear from Kara Marinek, who joins our team as one of 2 inclusive youth leadership managers, and Angela Nadeau, who is in charge of unified sports at the high school level. And lastly, we have Jason Schrimmel, who knows all things athlete leadership, Sue Snyder, our unified PE consultant, Ben Varga, who concentrates on the health and fitness of our athletes, and lastly, Caprice West, our second inclusive youth leadership manager. And speaking of Caprice West, we'd like to take a moment to shout her out for being named Special Olympics North America's Most Outstanding Coach in 2019. So Caprice works in Anne Arundel County and is very deserving of the award. So we're happy to have her on the team, again, as one of our inclusive youth leadership managers. So congratulations, Caprice, Coach. So to get us started, as many of you know, the purpose of Special Olympics Maryland is through sport to create a world where opportunity is not limited by disability. And this is accomplished by activating the power of people of all abilities and all ages. It truly is an opportunity that lasts a lifetime for our athletes. And the Unified Champion Schools program is an integral piece of this, you can see this lifespan of participation, because it cultivates foundational life skills and values in the school environment where the next generation of our students are learning, and not only learning academically, but learning to find their voice, realize their potential, and really build character that they'll carry with them through their lives. So the goal of Unified Champion Schools is to create school climates where students of all abilities are routinely included and engaged in their school community. And this is done using the passion and leadership of students with and without intellectual disabilities. Now, Unified Champion Schools programming has been proven in both the virtual and in-person settings to strengthen valuable school goals like social and emotional security, social and civic learning, and school connectedness and engagement. And this year, we're staying conscious of the fact that as challenging as this year is for general education students, there is a population of students, particularly, say, students with disabilities, that are likely enduring even more adversity for any number of reasons. And of course, we recognize that only you know the needs of your students and you know your school climate. Our team is here to offer what resources we have at our disposal to support you and your students in the ways you feel are needed for this year. And on that note, as of last year, we served 247 Maryland schools. They were involved with Unified Champion Schools, but only a fraction of those schools offered the full complement of Unified Champion Schools. So the purpose of this webinar is to briefly showcase the full menu of Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools programming for your consideration. And a lot of schools are already fulfilling many Unified Champion School goals through their own efforts. So our team can work to bolster these efforts and recognize the value of the work that a lot of schools have already been putting in. So as this diagram depicts, Unified Champion Schools combines 3 core components that work together to create a program with holistic effects on a school climate. So tonight we'll be demonstrating each component, that is inclusive sports and activity, inclusive youth leadership, and whole school engagement, after which we will cover the added component of sustainability, which makes sure we prepare for longevity in the implementation of the program. And finally, we'll describe the Unified Champion School banner recognition programs that are in place, one at the Maryland state level and one at the national level. And we'll talk about how schools can work towards achieving those very exciting honors. So at this time, I'd like to welcome you all to our Unified Champion School virtual classroom. We will launch each of tonight's topics from this room, and I'd like to apologize if this slide caused a knee-jerk reaction for any of you virtual educators out there. We thought it would be a fun way to incorporate some of the practices of this school year into our resources and into this presentation. And so we begin our Unified Champion Schools journey with component 1, which is unified sports and activity. And so you can see that this component is really all about getting the students moving. And so to start us off with this component, we will hear from Ben Varga, who will share with us about our virtual movement series. So Ben, take it away.
Thanks, Veronica, and hello, everybody. My name is Ben Varga, and I am super excited to be covering the health, wellness, and fitness opportunities offered by our program. Some brief information about me. I am the Healthy Communities Manager here at Special Olympics Maryland. I'm a huge Ohio State football fan, as my grandfather actually worked at Ohio Stadium for over 20 years, and my parents were also both born and raised in Ohio. I love professional sports, whether it's watching them, talking about them. 2 of my favorite leagues outside of college football, of course, are the NBA and the MLS. And lastly, a little fun fact about me is I actually went skydiving where Tom Cruise trained for his Mission Impossible stunts at Skydive to land in Daytona Beach, Florida. And I actually absolutely hate heights, so I will definitely not be doing that again, but it was a cool experience. Next slide. So health and wellness. The current components of our health and wellness programming mainly consist of 4 pieces: healthy athletes, health messengers, health forums, and performance stations. Next slide. Healthy athletes. So Healthy Athletes is an awesome event that we offer traditionally at our summer games in June, where our athletes can actually come in between competitions and receive free screenings in a variety of 8 healthy athlete disciplines that are listed below. Healthy hearing screenings are actually completed by our partners of Towson University's audiology department. And special smile screenings are completed by our partners of University of Maryland School of Dentistry. We are looking to expand the amount of Healthy Athletes events to more than just once annually at summer games. So be on the lookout for information about these events, as they are a terrific opportunity to take advantage of. Next slide. Health messengers. So health messengers are a vital piece of a good health and wellness program. They play an influential role in helping to improve the sport performance and general quality of life of their fellow athletes by taking a leadership role in our program dedicated to health, wellness, and fitness. To become a Special Olympics Maryland trained health messenger, athletes have to go through an application process explaining why they're passionate about health, wellness, and fitness, and then complete a 3-week training consisting of 6 classes where they're educated on topics like nutrition, hydration, self-advocacy, and social and emotional well-being, to name a few. The first class of Special Olympics Maryland trained health messengers was actually brought in a few months back in July 2020, and they've already had a great positive impact on our program. We are planning to hold another health messenger training in the near future, and would love to get some of our student athletes involved to become a part of this program. Next slide. Performance Stations. So Performance Stations is a really exciting offering that is usually held in person at some of our fall or spring state competitions, where athletes can come in between competition and engage in fun activities to learn about how certain topics like nutrition, hydration, competition readiness, and physical activity play an important role on their sport performance. Due to COVID, we are unable to hold Performance Stations in person this spring. However, we are offering this event tomorrow night, actually, which will be led by our first class of trained health messengers. Next slide, please. Virtual health forums. So health forums are led by Special Olympics Maryland's clinical directors. Our clinical directors are specifically trained to work with individuals with intellectual disabilities, or other healthcare professionals also could come in and lead a health forum. Health forums focus on a specific healthy athlete discipline where the host will educate participants about the discipline and then hold a live Q&A to cover any questions anyone has about the covered content. Some recent disciplines that were held at virtual health forums were fun fitness, where our participants learned about sports injury prevention, healthy hearing, where participants learned about what is audiology, and hydration and sun safety. Health forums are open for all to participate in and are usually held virtually on the last Wednesday of every month through Zoom. Next slide. Now on the fitness side of things, we have held Move meetings and Fam Fitness since April. Move meetings are held bi-weekly on Fridays at 12 p.m. Through Zoom, and these workouts are usually about 20 minutes focused on individual exercises. Fam Fitness is usually held once a month, and these workouts are usually about 35 to 40 minutes focused on exercises to be completed with a partner like a sibling or parent. Both of these offerings are led by our athletes, volunteers, and guest hosts, and focuses on exercises that can be completed with minimal to no equipment so that they are accessible for all to participate in. Next slide. Virtual movement. So most of the things I just covered have been a big part of virtual movement. Virtual movement was actually created towards the beginning of the pandemic back in March and was designed to keep our athletes as engaged as possible in the virtual environment during the mandatory quarantine season. While mandatory quarantines are not in effect now, virtual movement is still going strong thanks to the interest from our athletes. Many of the health and fitness offerings that I covered above would have been held in person, but the virtual environment actually allowed for us to put more emphasis on our athletes to participate in these offerings, which has been fantastic. Next slide. And this is just a screenshot of what we offer on our virtual movement website. This is basically a virtual library where you can find all the recordings of basically any offering we've previously held, as well as the calendar of events coming up. If you are unable to join a certain event for whatever reason, you can always go to this website at virtualsomd.com and find the links to any recordings using our resources page, as all recordings are uploaded to our YouTube page as well. And that's pretty much it from the health, wellness, and fitness side of things. Thank you so much for your time tonight, and I look forward to working with you soon.
Thank you, Ben. That was great. Next, we will be hearing from Mackenzie Irvin about the Young Athletes Program. So Mackenzie, you've got the floor.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us tonight. That is me on top of a mountain, and I am screaming, "I love inclusion" at the top of my lungs. I oversee our Young Athletes Program here at Special Olympics Maryland, and I have given my unofficial job title of Glorified Big Kid. Some fun facts about me is that I absolutely love the show Survivor, and I win an absurd amount of bar trivia because of it. I also am overly competitive about most things, but two of the big ones is bananagrams and skee ball. I think that most of my family and friends loathe how competitive and how much I bring bananagrams everywhere I go. Next slide, Veronica. So our young athletes, I know I am very biased, but I think it is the best and most joyous program that we offer here at Special Olympics. It's a gross motor sport and play program for children with and without intellectual disabilities. And that's the beauty right there, is that this program was founded in inclusion. We are able to service children ages 2 to 7. We do it one of 3 ways, which we'll get into in a little bit. And it's really just an opportunity to introduce basic sports skills, create communities of like-minded humans, and be able to celebrate what the joy of sport can really bring to a person's life and a person's experience. Next slide. So our 3 models for Special Olympics young athletes, it can be held in schools, in the community, and at home. And we'll take a little time to deeper dive into what it actually looks like. Next slide. So our young athletes in schools is probably our most successful version of young athletes thus far. Currently over the state of Maryland, we're in 95 elementary schools covering nearly 300 classrooms of utter inclusion, and we're servicing 3,748 students. And when we say students, that is going to be students with IEPs and general education students. It is total inclusion. Next slide. We also have our young athletes in the community. If you look at this map right here, every county that has a star is able to run a community-based young athletes program, utilizing volunteers and really amazing individuals that care about the movement and success of our future champions. You can also see on the bottom left, we have 2 brothers who are the stars of young athletes, Grady and Tyler, as they head to the 2019 Summer Games up at Towson. It's really the beginning of the starting point of a lifespan of participation with Special Olympics. It's really great to see. Next slide. And this is where we're focusing a lot of our efforts right now with COVID-19, young athletes in the home. We are trying to best support and give resources to our parents and to our childcare providers so that they better have resources and tools to get moving and keep active in the safety of their own home during this unprecedented time. Next slide. And with that, we obviously want to support them with anything that we can. So we have created a virtual campaign called Yappy Hour. Next slide. It meets every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for half an hour, led by a wonderful volunteer and lifelong Special Olympics coach, Janice Jank. Next slide. We meet every Monday, Wednesday, Friday for half an hour, with Monday and Friday really focusing in on our gross motor curriculum. And then Wednesday, we really have noticed that our youngest athletes want the opportunity to be able to socialize and be able to talk to their peers. So Wednesday, we take a more social emotional approach and do unified reading. We do show and tell, and we do a lot of music and movement. It's probably the best half an hour of each of my days on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Next slide. And all of that you can kind of find on Zoom. I will drop the link into our chat, and we hope to see you there.
Thank you, Mackenzie. So now, as you got a little sneak peek, we will be heading over to Melissa Kelly, who will tell us about some alternative unified activity options. So you're up, Melissa.
Good evening, everyone. Good to have you all, and thank you once again for making the time this evening. Looking forward to sharing some of the news and nuances regarding physical education, dance. Then we'll move into intramurals and interscholastics at the upper elementary and middle school level. So thank you. Slide. For Unified PE, this is a program that was founded a few years ago and was shared on the national stage at a Shape America conference. And some of our school system professionals saw that there and brought it here, most notably Anne Arundel County, who has been showcased by Shape America. So congratulations to those good people and all of the people at the grassroots level who have implemented that in Anne Arundel County. We, Special Olympics Maryland, are very proud of the work that they have done, and then as well of a number of other school systems who implement similar programs in their classrooms as well. and we hope to encourage and entice you to bring it to your schools as well. So if you are not necessarily a phys ed teacher or have any specialty in phys ed, please do take this information back to the people in your building that do, and hopefully we can figure out a way to bring this to your school. I will not go through all of the goals verbatim, but please do take the time to review that. We have done extensive research with some very notable chapters, those being New Jersey, the founding place of unified phys ed, and then as well South Carolina. So we'll go over our findings there. Slide. Really, for the most part, the bulk of your head scratching, if you will, would be with considering which model to implement at your school. So obviously we are faced with virtual models across the state right now, and then we'll exponentially move into hybrid, and then eventually obviously into in-person. So we want to cover all of our bases. With an in-person model, we have realized there are two typical settings. So with that, you would have your what is typically referred to as a self-confined classroom or class. Learning for Life is a typical reference for these students, and they would attend phys ed simultaneously and cooperatively with a typical group of students. And it would be scheduling. So we realized that this would be an ambitious endeavor at the elementary level, given the space and size of gymnasiums, but it could happen. And certainly we can modify that to accordingly for your spacing limitations. Otherwise, there is a model that we will refer to as player development. And in this scenario, similarly, it would be a class of students with disabilities joined by a group of students without a disability, and those students would be of equal or older age group. And those students would act as helpers, helping the students with disabilities understand and complete the task at hand. Slide. With regard to the, furthermore, with the composition, so identifying how or your source for students without disabilities will definitely be take some thought and discussions within your school. So the two models that we are suggesting are the control class registration. So that would mean advertising the class as a unified class. The students with a disability would be registered, and then the students without a disability could choose that class and might even be hand selected or invited to register or given advance notice of the opportunity for that class. It would be an official registration. Everyone would be consistent participants or students in that class. And I say that because our next model is a bit different. And this is the case where South Carolina has found immense success with a roving partner or students without a disability model. In this scenario, students with a disability be registered in the class, and then the students without a disability would be invited to attend as a guest on alternating schedule with attending the class, helping the students with disabilities with no less frequency than once every 4 class sessions. Slide. The next few slides you'll find a series of resources and presentations. In early August, North America hosted a Unified PE 3-day conference, which I found exceptionally informative, and so much so that I wanted to share the presenters and their literal recordings of their presentations. So you will find that here. I wanted to take a moment to point out 2 recent partnerships that we have realized by way of North America as well, and that is Hip Hop Public Health, which was founded in New York City in the 80s to reduce the variance and accessibility to nutrition and health for those who did not have the means. And then likewise, Build Our Kids Success, which was founded in Boston, Massachusetts, of all places. So similarly, in this community, there was a great variance of means as close between homes as 1 block away. So that was to reduce that variance in availability to resources to support health and fitness. A note that I skipped, apologies, that we are in the exploratory stage of identifying a fitness tracking model. It may or may not have a competition component to it. Sharing that because we are looking at other state chapters that have identified and are carrying out these similar models. We want to make sure that whatever we bring to Special Olympics Maryland is, and then to you, of course, is of quality and has been field tested. So more to come on that. Slide. And then just another listing of so many resources made available to you. All of these are live links, so they will be readily available. And we want to make sure you, at the top of that list, consider Shape Maryland as a very prominent member here and has a number of resources out both for the virtual world and otherwise. Slide. Want to make sure you are well aware of 2 conventions that are coming our way. Shape Maryland is hosting on November 14th, free of cost. It will be hosted virtually, so look for information on that, as well as a Train the Trainer scholarship program. We intend to extend 10 scholarships for folks to attend that particular session and then return to their home school to deliver Train the Trainer trainings, both at their home school and homeschool system. And then for Shape America convention that is offered there. Slide. Okay, moving on to additional offerings and unified intramurals and interscholastics. First, I wanted to make sure, again, to underscore this, these are the programs that can be made available and have proven successful in middle schools, and we would love the opportunity to bring them to the upper elementary school level as well. First, intramurals are actually a campus-based sports model, commonly held, but not necessarily in all scenarios held after school. So some pros listed there, most notably transportation, and there's no Special Olympics medical requirement, which is usually a quite substantial hurdle for families to undertake and ensure their proper registration. But because the team is not leaving campus, they do not have to complete a medical. So thumbs up there. And then furthermore, that you can read a review at your leisure. Slide. Okay, intramurals. The cons here would be that there's no external competition. So depending on the interest from the student body in your particular school, that you might not have the options or the depth of competition to keep the interest going and build on that interest for years to come. So that might be somewhat of a downfall. And then as well, we have found when we have launched these programs in school systems, there typically is a disproportionate interest from either all, so rosters will be composed of students with disabilities or students without disabilities. It's hard to engage both populations, so a caution there. And this as well, intramurals are highly contingent on home support because they would typically self-transport in a number of our school systems, and then as well, that may have a direct impact on attendance. Slide. As far as interscholastics, very similar to what I've described as intramurals, except they then travel to other schools within your county. That allows for a greater diversity in competition, as well as a feel, personal pride for representing your school, and which is all great things. And then additionally, this would serve as possibly a feeder program to your high schools if you do in fact partner with us to offer interscholastic unified sports. Slide. And then as I stated before, because the students would be traveling off campus, as Special Olympics Medical or the National Federation Medical would be required on an annual basis, and that is consistent with the requirements through the governing bodies. So that's not our requirement alone. That would be the National Federation of High School Sports, which extends also to the middle school level. So a note there. And then as well, transportation costs, availability, roster limits with the pandemic, and seats and spacing protocols for busing as well. Slide. Great. And thank you very much for your time. I'm happy to talk with you and look forward to hearing from you if you do, in fact, want to bring any of these programs to your school. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Melissa. So next up, we have Angela Nadeau, who's going to be talking about interscholastic unified sports at the high school level. So here you are, Angela.
Thanks, Veronica. We'll go on to my slide, please. Thanks. So, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out tonight to come and listen to all of us. I want to thank my teammates that have already spoken before me. The amount of work that goes into putting our programs together is collaborative and very much a team effort, just like it is in our school systems with everything that our teachers do. As a former teacher, I know exactly what goes on a daily basis. So for all of you teachers out there, especially, and our administrators working hard for our children, as you can see mine in the picture with me, I am extremely grateful for all the work that you do. He is a 6th grader and love of my life, calls me mum, and gotta love this kid. He's now 5'2", 120 pounds, is playing defensive end on his tackle football team. I blinked because I was rocking him the other day, you know, and it felt that it just, all of a sudden he's almost as big as I am. We love animals and we love our zoos. And just a fun fact, I have actually ridden on a camel, I've actually touched an elephant, and I have fed a tiger cub. So just, you know, I'm not all about the sports. I also love my animals too. So next slide, please, thanks. So here you see what looks like our progression, and some of my teammates have already talked about this. And so our young athletes and our middle levels, which both Melissa and Mackenzie are working very hard to continue to develop these programs. I have the very distinct honor and pleasure of working with a lot of our high schools across the state and in our Scholastic Unified Sports. And as a former teacher in the high school and as a special educator, I got a chance to see firsthand what this means to students that play on a unified team, both as either a unified partner or as an athlete. When their school supports them, there's rallies, there's state championships, there's competition. Kids love competition. And so when a kid comes into my classroom, shows me his medal and says, look, Miss Netto, we won the bocce state tournament and we won a gold medal. And he had tears in his eyes and his teammates are hugging him. And that's a feeling that you know, I can't even imagine what that does for that child, for that team, for the school, for that family. It's an incredible feeling. And so this is one of the reasons why I love my job so much, and will continue to support all of you and all of our school systems in making sure that our programs are up to date and are relevant and our coaches are well supported. 94%, there's that number. It's a very big number of athletes and partners say unified sports made them healthier, and 91% of our athletes and partners reported improvement in sports skills. This is fitness for life. This is something that they can do for the rest of their lives. Everybody can do. So this is one of these reasons why we want to continue our programs. Next slide, please, Veronica. And so we don't just stop at the high school. We also want to let you know that there are programs at the college level. We have partnerships with many colleges in the area and surrounding area, and that we are working to build and to let our families know that there's more after high school. And what does that look like? And so, as you can see at the bottom of the slide, we have lots and lots of programs throughout the state in our community. And this is one of the pieces that I'm working on with our development team, is to make sure that there is some more transition from high school into our community, into our college base. So that is one of my foundations as well, and not just working on our programs. And just again, my fun fact, 79% of unified sports teammates without an intellectual disability reported increased understanding of people with intellectual disabilities. That's an important statistic, and that's an important gap that we're trying to close. Next slide, please. So I don't necessarily need to, read everything here as far as what does it do to be an athlete, but just as a reminder for those of you who may not know, we offer 5 sports. That is the most number of interscholastic sports that offer a state competition in the country. So we are very proud of what we do and work very hard as a team and an organization and with your schools and with everybody that supports, whether as a coach, whether as a volunteer. I don't definitely do this by myself. And I am blessed to have chair people for each of the sports: tennis, indoor bocce, strength and conditioning, outdoor bocce, track and field. So I have people that oversee and work with me in these programs. In each one of our counties that work with us, there's somebody else that also works directly with coaches. So we have an incredible team that works for our student athletes all across the state. Next slide, please. So just again, as a reminder, what is the mission of Special Olympics? Athletic competition in a variety of Olympic type sports. That's why you see the 5 sports that we offered. We may look in the future to be adding perhaps one more, possibly 2, but in the meantime, just to let you know, these are Olympic type sports and why these are the ones that we chose. So some people are saying, well, why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? Because this is what we also offer at the national and international levels. And these are successful programs here for the state of Maryland. Next slide, please. So when you get a chance, listen to Rob Havenstein, who was a former Unified partner and a high school graduate of Linganore up in Frederick County, and now a Los Angeles Ram. There's a great video that he had put out as to why Unified Sports was special to him. And as you can see here, the reasons why people need to come out and train, you can read that at your own time. Next slide, please. Just to let you know also, we are offering virtual components for our athletes and our coaches. And these are in different formats. And so throughout this fall and toward the end of first semester, you'll be seeing more of these guides coming out through your coaches and athletic directors and programs. And the first part of it is the Fit 5 program, and the bottom, which is super neat, is called the School of Strength. And I'm excited to roll those out. Next slide, please. This is a resource page for everybody on how to get to everything, things to do from home, research as to the advantages and the reasons why interscholastic sports and sports in general is good for everybody, and some of these videos. Next slide, please. Sorry, I'm speaking fast, but the most important piece, I believe, of all of this is our return to play. As we all know, Governor Hogan put out a memo and Dr. Salmon about high school sports and competition. And basically, just to let you know, we are aware, and the steps that were taken in certain counties are bringing back students to play on school campuses. So with that, we have an internal team working together with some core people around the state to make decisions based on what the governor has said, to make sure that we have all the pieces and components in part and ready for everybody to participate in a healthy and safe manner. And just as a reminder, we as Special Olympics Maryland will not host any state competitions for fall or winter sports seasons. So if the counties choose to do something, it will be probably within inter-county, but it will not be at a state competition level. Virtual resources and in-person coaches guides are in development, and they will be available in the next couple of weeks. And the second semester plans are going to be reviewed with the MPSSAA and other local school system personnel. And if you have any questions or concerns or any comments, my information is at the bottom of the slide, and I'll be happy to help anybody. And welcome back to sports, everyone. Thanks, Veronica.
Excellent. Thank you, Angela. So that wraps up our first component, which is unified sports. We now enter our second component, inclusive youth leadership. So to kick component 2 off, we will be hearing from Kara Marinek. She'll be telling us a little bit about inclusive school clubs. So here we are, Kara.
All right, thanks, Veronica. Hi, everybody. My name is Kara Marinek, and I am super excited to be working again with Special Olympics Maryland. I have been involved with special education for over 17 years at the school level. Most of my time has been spent with secondary programs and transition. My title with Special Olympics is Inclusive Youth Leadership Manager. My unofficial job title, I am a lifelong student. I am currently working on my doctorate in special education and have now been attending classes for over 25 years, which makes me kind of nauseous thinking about it. But I have been to 49 of the 50 states. I'm only missing Alaska, so love traveling. I am also a parent. I have 2 boys, and one of my boys is actually on an IEP, and inclusive school clubs would be a phenomenal addition to what he is able to do and be a part of at his school level. I have been able to be a part of inclusive school clubs at some of the programs that I've worked, and I can say that they have been just amazing for what they have done for all of the students that are involved. Next slide, please. So many schools right now could really use the inclusive youth club type of program, especially during these unprecedented times. And the side effects of distance learning right now have only just begun. The good news is that many schools already have similar club offerings, or if they don't, they have some of those components already started, and they just need to get their building administration approval. So as far as being a lifelong educator, I really have only seen these types of programs available for less than 10% of the population, which is just really a bummer. So currently, right now, we're looking at 3 prerequisites for an inclusive youth club. So first off, they should be non-academic and recognized by the school administration. They should include students both with and without disabilities, and they should be acting as equal members, meaning that they are all considered a part of that club. They all get to make decisions. They are all treated fairly and equally, and they really work collaboratively together within that club, and that is shown and seen throughout their school and their community. And then the members within this inclusive youth club don't necessarily need to be participating in unified sports. We've already heard how amazing those programs are and really what is out there on the sports side of things. So we're really looking at trying to create rosters that are really inclusive of our students who may not necessarily be participating on that side. You really want to look beyond and look for students who may be sitting alone at lunch and are really not in the inner social circles within their community or within their school. You want to look for kids who are not always asked first to be starting clubs like our student council or you know, our honors clubs. So really finding all those types of students within our building are really where you want to look. Next slide, please. So really, these types of clubs really are intended to plan, promote, and deliver activities and events that are relevant to what's going on in society as a whole. We really want to look to these students to be change agents within our buildings and our communities so that they're able to really plan and promote and deliver whole school engagement. And you're looking to accept and do respect and understanding of all those involved with those clubs, and then working collaboratively, again, like I said, in the school as a whole, and being able to see those change agents being able to take hold within their school buildings. Next slide. So Special Olympics North America has created tons of resources to help in this creation and management of inclusive youth clubs. They even have some for the virtual setting that we are currently finding ourselves in. So here's just a few examples of those. We have some video discussions, a how-to for the virtual setting, a how-to for creating and sustaining, and then inclusion tiles. So there's just a few examples. Next slide. And the best resources that you guys have access to are myself and Caprice West. We are both your inclusive youth managers. So we are both lifetime educators, and we really do know the ins and outs of school-based populations, and just know that we are here and we are knowledgeable and really understand what it takes to get these clubs going. So in closing, I really want to remind you that a large majority of our clubs that are out there are designed for the typical student. And then I think inclusive youth clubs are really the exception and are so needed at this time. As much as the typical student is isolated during distance learning, Special Olympic athletes are even more isolated because they likely do not have the option of going out without their parents. They may not have access to a cell phone to call or text, chat with their friends. They're not necessarily playing video games with anyone. So just those kind of things, you know, are not always available for our students. So school is really their social circle and really just their social outlet. So these clubs can really be started quickly, and really all you need is administrative approval, parent guardian approval, and internet access as the only really mandatory requirements. So I really hope that you guys take this into consideration, and I hope I hear from you and any others really soon about being able to bring this exceptional offering to your school. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kara. Next up, we will hear from Jason Schrimmel, who will be presenting on athlete leadership and social offerings, even in the virtual world.
Thanks, Veronica, and welcome everybody. Really appreciate your time tonight. My job at Special Olympics Maryland is the VP for Athlete Leadership, kind of a new role in Special Olympics, and we'll get into some of the details about that. But quick fact, I do love to travel like Kara. I have not been to as many states as her, but I have been to about 17% of the world's countries. Anytime I can get away, I certainly like to do that. So good, slide. So Special Olympics Athlete Leadership, probably a program you haven't heard of. Really coming into its own in the last 4 or 5 years, though it's been around since the 90s. Essentially, leadership is partnering with athletes and educating other people about their abilities, but also training and providing opportunities for athletes to share and practice their ability. It's an opportunity, a program that we use to develop the whole athlete, not just the person on the court or in the pool or on the field, but the person who grows outside of their sports roles as well. Slide. There are 3 guiding principles in athlete leadership: education and awareness. We'll talk about all 3 of these. Education and awareness, which leads to training, which leads to creating leadership positions and having athletes practice all the education and all the training that they've learned. So let's review them quickly. Slide. Principle 1, education and awareness. Utilizing the unified leadership approach. I think you've heard Melissa and a few other of my colleagues talk about the unified leadership approach and unified sports. So unified leadership is building up from sports, is teaching leaders of all abilities to value and learn from each other. And we want to create roles where both can be successful. And there's 2 ways that we do this. We build the capacity for our athletes, or individuals or students with ID, to achieve their full potential through training and skills. And then we educate leaders without disabilities about the value and the great abilities that these athletes with ID have. Slide. So you can see in this diagram the athlete is the center of the whole kind of circle. And there's many ways that an athlete can contribute as a leader. Through health, you've heard Ben talk about the opportunities in health. Through sport, and we know about sport because it's in your school. Angela talked about the 5 different sports, and talked about youth with Mackenzie, and then we talked about our program in the community. So athletes can touch many of these components and demonstrate leadership in all 4 of these realms. Slide. Principle 2, athletes have a choice in how and where they lead in Special Olympics. We want athletes to be involved and we want them to lead, but we don't want to tell them how to do that and why or where they have to lead. We want to make sure that athletes, in fact, are leading in the best way that they feel comfortable and the way that they think that they can have the most success. Slide. So this takes us to the leadership and skills curriculum. As you can see, we have levels of leadership. We start at the top with introduction to athlete leadership and understanding leadership. And then we get into kind of many more trainings. We have some advanced leadership where we're talking about emotional learning. We're talking about managing time. We're talking about leading discussions. And then there are roles. And then there are kind of professional and personal development courses. So it's quite a variety. In fact, we have over 50 opportunities for training athlete leaders or students. Slide. Principle 3, creating a meaningful position of influence and leadership. 50 years ago when we started Special Olympics, the level of engagement was that we're going to do this for the athletes. And we wanted to provide this opportunity to compete. Now we want to do, now with athlete leadership, we're going to do it with the athletes, and hopefully in the near future that this movement will be led by the athletes. Slide. So we do some of this currently in our situation with COVID through social clubs. Slide. And some social clubs are kind of get-togethers during the pandemic to make sure that we're maintaining contact with our athletes. And here are some of the topics that we've been talking about. They happen Tuesdays and Thursdays from 7 to 8. There's a Saturday night dance party. Right now, 60% of these social clubs are actually led by athletes. Slide. We're currently doing some boot camps, so slide. Boot camps are practical ways that we're taking the skills that we've taught them and making sure that we teach a quick lesson, we practice it, and then we execute it, and then it's over within an hour. So we're trying to apply the skills that we've taught them earlier on in the year. Slide. And once we can get back to kind of an in-person training, we can also offer traditional trainings in person. We talked about the boot camps and some customized trainings, concierge trainings, or trainings that that might be school specific. Slide. Okay, this is an example of the virtual learning on the Zoom platform. Slide. And it's just a general format for as we get closer in the future to in-person trainings. To host one, we do require a minimum of 8 students and partners. Trainings are generally for participants 16 years or older, and we highly encourage athletes and unified partners to attend these together to keep up with our model of unified leadership. So I hope I can work with you in the near future, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for that, Jason. So for our last portion of component 2, we have Jeff Abel, who will be talking about youth leadership summits. So take it away, Jeff.
Hi, everyone. So thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Jeff Abel. As we said, I'm Vice President for Local Program Development with Special Olympics Maryland. I've gotten to meet some of you out on the tennis court when I'm doing coaches trainings and certainly enjoy getting on the court with our athletes. And I'm looking forward to working with you and your students in a different capacity through youth leadership summits as well. Slide. So youth leadership summits, we did one a few years ago, and we're going to continue to do them coming this winter, but they'll bring together students with and without disabilities at the regional and state level. And through workshops and trainings, we're going to take part in interactive experience that cultivate skills to be leaders for your school. But the whole idea is bringing students together from different schools, share different perspectives, and work together to promote more inclusive environments in their schools and in their communities. Slide. So as you start to consider students who might be interested in attending our youth leadership summits, I wanted to highlight some things that would identify great summit teams. So typically your summit team would be made up of one student with a disability and one without, so unified experience. We certainly would not disclose that information to attendees who has the disability and who does not, but we do want to make this a unified opportunity. This is a great opportunity to reach students off the playing field. While we know there's probably some student athletes in your program that would be really interested in attending, you might want to consider engaging students who aren't involved through sports, but do want to make a difference in their schools. The last one that I would highlight is that in terms of sustainability for our program and for your program, we would look to have 1 to 2 years left in high school. So traditionally sophomores or juniors, but obviously, you know, some of our students might be not sophomores, juniors looking for, you know, high school completion. And so obviously older students would be fine. And we're going to let you identify the students. We're not going to have an application through Special Olympics Maryland. We can certainly provide those resources, but we would look to you to identify the students the student team who you think would work best. Slide. And the summit map. So this is how we get to those leadership summits. I would ask that so that students can get the most out of the experience, to consider students who can actively participate in all 4 of these segments as they're going through them. So we start out with base camp. Obviously, in a virtual environment, it doesn't lend itself to an all-day virtual leadership conference. And so in order to shorten the summit, we're going to have a base camp experience where they're doing some independent learning and reflection in preparation for the summit on topics like exploring leadership, considering themselves as leaders and their leadership styles, and inclusive leadership. As they do that preparation, they're getting ready for the summit, which would be a regional meeting of student leaders where we are putting into action some of the topics that are covered in base camp. So we're going to be doing things with public speaking, group facilitation, how to lead effective meetings for those unified clubs that will be started, conflict management, project planning, and then identifying a practicum project where they can implement back in their own school community some of the things that they've learned to promote more inclusive environments. While they're working on that practicum project, there's going to be base touches with Special Olympics Maryland staff members where we can provide feedback, offer ideas, and affirm their progress as they're going through this practicum project. And finally, that free solo, keeping with the summit mountain climbing theme, where we're going to be looking for them to work collaboratively with their unified teams and clubs to lead a project, putting into practice what was learned. Ideally, this is going to help you fulfill that whole school engagement component and maybe your youth leadership component as well. Slide. And all of this is in preparation to build the framework for a statewide leadership council that we're looking to 21-22 school year. So the youth leadership council members must have previously attended a youth summit, so that might sway your decision on who you might send to this year's leadership summit. Again, it will be a unified experience. We're going to meet regularly as a youth leadership council, and then these individuals will help us plan youth summits, serve as coaches and facilitators for the upcoming youth summits, and assist with practicum projects as they come together. So we're really excited to unroll this, and as I said, very much looking forward to working with you and your student athletes and your student leaders as we kick off our youth summit. So thanks so much, and that closes me out, Veronica.
Great, thank you, Jeff. So actually now we are able to move to the last of our 3 main components, which is whole school engagement, which is very much what it sounds like. And as it happens, I will be the only one talking about this component. So you know who I am, hopefully by now. I've been talking for so long. I'm Veronica. I work on implementing Unified Champion Schools in Western Maryland. And something about me that I debated sharing with you is that I used to dress up in full period costume at a previous job. So either very impressive or very humiliating, but I'll let you be the judge. So we're talking about whole school engagement. So whole school engagement activities are intended to promote inclusion by reaching the majority of the school population. So these are the things that create a full school environment where respect is the norm. This is really taking that step from unified sports or a unified club to a unified champion school. So from top to bottom, students to staff to admin, a school has an inclusive climate. And there's a lot of creativity and flexibility involved in this. Your unified club can take the lead on deciding what these look like, but a few examples of what reaching the whole school can look like could be pep rallies or fans in the stands events where plenty of fans show up to support a unified competition or event. It could be a banner signing and pledge to support inclusion. This is one of the better known examples. It's the Spread the Word Inclusion campaign, which takes place in March of every year. So you ask everyone to pledge to stop their use of harmful language, derogatory language habits, and to choose to include instead. Another example of whole school engagement could be any kind of theme week. Many schools like to refer to disability awareness calendars and plan educational outreach activities that can reach their classmates based on those. So there's a few highlights here listed in the coming semester from the disability awareness calendar, as well as a lot of other great resources that can be found at this hyperlink on the right here. The Generation Unified team has prepared things like spirit weeks, bucket lists, respect pledges for students to use from home, and these can be achieved virtually. So if your school prepares morning announcements or any kind of daily program for students to listen to, or weekly, these daily or weekly tips and challenges or theme weeks can definitely be incorporated in that way, and you can reach most, if not all, of the student body. And of course, for older students and adults, social media is an excellent tool in this school year where everyone is really relying so heavily on virtual communication. So there's a couple of our common hashtags listed over there on the right. But again, I would just say a whole school engagement activity can be anything that's fun, inclusive, and involves the whole school. And so that's really up to the student leaders in the unified clubs to get creative with those and to do what they feel would have the most impact on their classmates and their student body. So that concludes our discussion of our third main component of the Unified Champion School model. Thank you for your patience through all of that. And now, as promised, we will briefly hear about some of the ways to keep Unified Champion Schools programming sustainable for the future. And for that, we will turn to Frank Farrell, our Vice President of Development. So I will now turn it over to you, Frank.
Absolutely, thank you. So if you're looking to put face with the voice and the name, I am the one in glasses in this photo, and I don't look as good in white. So you now know which one I am. So as we transition to the next slide, I just want to talk about really two different fundraising opportunities for you guys out there. So the first is that traditionally law enforcement agencies across the state participate in carrying the Eternal Flame of Hope. So it runs across the state, and ultimately the final leg ends at Towson University, and that kind of signifies the start and remains lit through our summer games. So with summer games being canceled this year, like everything else in the world, canceled this summer, that run was canceled or postponed. So we are currently in a virtual torch run model. So the website is open now. So as a fundraising opportunity, you can go in and create a team for your school. And then from there, it is $30 to participate, which includes the really awesome t-shirt that you see on there, a downloadable race bib, and then you log your miles through Strava. So in this virtual world, it's a great opportunity to do fundraising, promote healthy, get outside, log some miles, and also fundraise for your school. So that one is currently running. You can check the dates that are here. So kind of a tight window, but certainly plenty of time to get signed up, get a team signed up and get active. Next is probably the one most people are familiar with, and most people probably have a lot of questions about. So one of the most exciting events that really occurs in the state of Maryland is the polar bear plunge. If you're not aware, it's the largest plunge in the world, is ours here in Maryland. So as we look to the polar bear plunge for January 2021, we want to keep the 25-year tradition alive. However, looking at the size there that you can see, it does not appear that we'll be in a situation in January where social distancing will not be the norm. But to kind of reiterate with those on the call, we had 4,500 students participated last year. They came from 79 schools and raised nearly $500,000 for Special Olympics athletes and programs throughout the state. So we want to move to a virtual model this year for schools. As you can see, it's the safe opportunity in order to still keep the tradition alive. So our concept here is that we would be able to create a private, via whatever platform you use in school, tie it into kind of a pep rally, and great opportunity to get more staff, faculty, and more students involved, where they would actually virtually plunge at home. So either running through a sprinkler, jumping into your bathtub, or something like that. So get creative and have fun with it. So feel free to reach out for clarification as this thing starts to progress and we start to build out the virtual plunge model for schools. So the last one and final one is just the two that we talked about are in the next 4 months, but we really want to create, an option that works for everybody. So a la carte ideas. So there's one here which would be a merchandise store that ties into our inclusive message. But certainly reach out to any of your Special Olympics Maryland contacts or myself for any ideas or brainstorming any other options that you may want to look into for fundraising, because we appreciate your support. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Frank. So very lastly, we are going to now hear about the Unified Champion Schools banner recognition programs. These are very exciting opportunities, and for that we will turn to Melissa Kelly again to talk a little bit more to that. So Melissa, over to you.
Hi, thank you again, Veronica. So that's a fun picture there, me on the left in my early days of my tenure on staff. So enjoy. Slide, please. In the spirit of knowing that we are running over and being mindful of your time and commitment this evening, just wanted to go over this very briefly. Know that you can get in touch with me or read the materials that will be sent as a follow-up with more detail, and we can touch base personally, and there will be actually some informational webinars scheduled in the next week or so and shared broadly. So with that, the Maryland Recognition Program was established just this year. We actually, this was a takeaway from our friends in Indiana who have realized immense success. They established this as a step-up program for schools that were looking to achieve the National Recognition Program, which we launched in 2018. We believe that a number of our schools are actually already incorporating all three components to achieve Unified Champion School status. But the 10 components that are required for the national accolade are a bit ambitious, and we need a step-up program to help our schools get there. And then certainly everyone has so much to do. So let's make it simpler, more achievable, and we'll support you through that. And then we will set our sights to the national accolade. Slide. So this, as we've talked about, achieving all three components would reach the distinction of a Unified Champion School. And then the Maryland program is actually adding a fourth, which Frank referenced as well, which is sustainability. And there are prescribed donation levels or donation goals for each level, rather. And this is identified as a minimum annual donation, and one that is intended to be achievable by our most our schools that have graduating class of 60 students or fewer, or the much larger schools that have 2,200 students in their building or more. And then as well considerations with Title I status and so on and so forth. And this is just to demonstrate as well a commitment to Unified Champion Schools in Maryland, and will help us build the program, progress the program, and extend it to more schools statewide. If you can imagine, there are more than 1,400 schools in the public schools in the state. So we are making progress, but still there's a lot more schools to reach, and we need your help in doing that. And with that, the sustainability is immensely important. So the second reference to this is the necessity to meet their grant reporting requirements. These are requirements that are required by North America, and we pass on to our participating schools. So there are 2 reports, mid and end year, and then monthly reports, which are actually will be designed for the students to complete. We don't want to pile onto your very full and overflowing plate, school system professionals, so we can design that for the students to carry that through. And then many of you are familiar with the North America School Liaison Survey, which is you have no less than 2.5 months to complete, but one that is very important because we then North America then takes that and interprets it to or translates that to trends, happenings, and who we are reaching in our entire country. Slide. Okay, the National Recognition Program, like I said, incorporates 10 components. And slide. And it is in 34 states so far. It's highly coveted, endorsed by ESPN, the National Federation of High School Sports, so on and so forth. And we decided to bring it here 2 years ago after it was field tested and endorsed by a number of our friendly chapters. Slide. So I'm not going to go through all of these. These are drill downs on each of the components that we've described already. So sport and activity, and the respective details that the school needs to achieve. Slide. Component 2, inclusive youth leadership. The Inclusive Youth Club needs to meet at least once per month, be recognized by the school, and have a staff liaison. Slide. And then whole school engagement. 2 whole school engagement activities. Here in Maryland, we actually set the bar a bit high. So whereas a offering such as a school pep rally that recognizes the unified teams as all of the other teams, we set our sights a bit higher than that and want everyone to achieve or aim to achieve many of the references that Veronica had during her whole school engagement segment. Slide. And again, sustainability. I don't need to reiterate this. I do want to take a moment to explain to everyone that while these 2 programs are presented in a fashion that suggests that it is a checklist, right? So for the Maryland program, there are 4 boxes to check, if you will. One could assume that. And then with the National Recognition Program, there would be 10 tasks or tasks to achieve in order to meet these standards. We Special Olympics don't want you to think, we Special Olympics Maryland don't want you to think of it that way. It's not a checkbox. These are things that have been identified as building school culture, enhancing school culture. Even if you are the best and the brightest blue ribbon school in the state, we still can, we believe we can work together to improve your school culture. So know that here in the virtual setting, these are things that we can help you start in your building, or if you're already doing them, enhance them, so on and so forth. But please, again, it shouldn't be a checkbox checklist. We want you to incorporate these things with the genuine and sincere intention of bettering students' lives and your school community. Slide. And thank you again.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Melissa. So that does it for the presentation portion of our session here tonight. Again, thank you all so much for your attention. We'll take this moment to return our attention to the chat box. So if there's anything, any questions or comments lingering that you have regarding anything spoken about tonight, please feel free to take a moment to type those up in the chat box. And while we're checking on that, just a reminder that these slides and a recording of this presentation will be sent out after tonight. So you'll have all of this and more readily available to you. And please, a reminder, be on the lookout for the other resources we'll send out, which will include a very important but very brief interest survey that is designed to be filled out by anyone in a school system who has interest in getting Unified Champion Schools programming going. So parent, teacher, administrator, this survey is really the key to getting connected with you, where you are with what you have, so that we can make this a really great school year. And as one last note to leave you on, at your leisure, please take a moment to check out this message from Chairman of Special Olympics International, Tim Shriver. The video is hyperlinked here on this slide, and he really just encapsulates in about 60 seconds what Unified Champion Schools are all about. So it's a really great resource. And again, you can revisit this on your own terms once we send all this material out. So at this point, I'll ask Mackenzie to update us on anything that may have come in via the chat box. So Mackenzie, I'm unmuting you.
I'm not seeing anything. I think that we probably have so much information. It's your brain is probably buzzing right now. But if you have any questions or concerns or feedback, you spend the night thinking about it, reach out to any one of us. You can see that Gmail account right there. Or any one of us that we're able to present tonight. We are here and we have the answers for you.
Thank you. I reiterate everything Mackenzie just said. So with that, we want to just say a massive, massive thank you to everyone involved tonight, all of our presenters and attendees who tuned in. We really appreciate your time. This is truly a school year for the books, but we're confident that we can make the best of it together. So again, thank you so much, everyone. I will be ending our webinar session momentarily. So stay safe and enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you so much. Good night.